Move on to Dr. Reem. Dr. Reem is from Bahrain Polytechnic, well represented here this morning. And Dr. Reem is going to talk to us about rethinking assessment for access and success in higher education. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay. Down. Yeah. Okay.
You sounded just fine. You sounded just fine.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today in person, and thank you for the participants online. It's me again, Reem Buainain, Deputy CEO for Academic Affairs in Bahrain Polytechnic. I'm here today to share with you my presentation about access, participation, and success in higher education. So my presentation has 4 elements. It's about educational institutions, access to higher education, changes COVID brings to the higher education, and the assessment. Before going to my presentation, the role of higher education, just my colleague Jamil Hassan asked, what is the role of higher education in post-pandemic era? How the higher education needs to be changed? Over the past 2 days, we realized something in this conference. We see lots of key players here from companies, from IT companies, edtech companies. And in the discussion in this conference, we were discussing, are the universities the key players to do these changes? This is a very good question. And to rethink about this, I will share with you a short story. I'm sure all of you know about it. It's a Blockbuster versus Netflix. Blockbuster was a movie rental champion between 1985 and 1992. And Netflix established in 1997, only with technology. In 1992, Blockbuster has 2,800 branches all over US. And Netflix, when it started in 1997, they have only technology. So the champion of the field and the key player now is disrupted by the technology. And this is why we call it technology disruptors. Technology disruptors are the new key players. They compete with the traditional key players just because they have the technology. And currently, we have the digital disruptor. The companies and the representative of industry over the past 2 days, they are the new key players. Coursera, Cortex, Booklips, many of the new entities, they are competing us, higher education. If we are not asking us a critical question about what our role, what we are going to do in the future, my colleague Jamil, he mentioned that we will lose the competition with other new disruptors. So what's happening in COVID-19, that we transfer from face-to-face education to online education without any preparation for higher education. We just started with all our capacity, and we learn from this stage that we can do. Before we have limitation to the classrooms, we think we need more classrooms, we think we need more books in the library to accept more students. However, after COVID-19, we realized maybe most of these things are not needed to increase the number of students and have our students in higher education. So from us, higher education institution, we would like to increase the number of students because we are running based on tuition fees. If we increase the number of students, this is good for us because they are paying more tuition fees for us. It is good for the economy, for the countries, because they will have a very good graduates they can build to our economy. It is good for the student themselves. So access is important, not only to us from financial perspectives, it's all from economic perspective, development perspective. So why access is important? Before I go to increase the access and use all the current facilities to increase the access of youth to higher education, what is the current situation in Arab and MENA region for the access to higher education? When I go to gross enrollment ratio, I found this number published by UNESCO. The ratio, the access ratio in US is close to 90%. In Europe, it's very close to 70%, which is the blue bar. All over the world, the gray bar is between 30 and 40. However, Arab countries or MENA region is less than international average. So what does these numbers mean? Mean that the group who are eligible to access to higher education, only 35, less than 35% in our MENA region, they access higher education. And the question, why it is lower than other higher education sectors in other countries? So we have issue here. And I think this is what we would like to increase. We would like to increase the access for us as universities to accommodate and have more students, for countries to have to educate more youth and make them participant in the economic development, and as well for parents and the student themselves. So if I go to country by country, you will realize here there is difference between 2019 and 2020. Saudi Arabia, for example, the highest. The access to higher education in Saudi Arabia, almost 70%, which is the highest in Arab country. And you will see Algeria, Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and United Arab Emirates has the highest ratio access to higher education. And maybe this is because of the cost and economic of these countries. However, there are some countries with a very low access to higher education, such as Mauritania. There are some countries published their information published in UNESCO only for 2019, and some Arabic countries, the access to higher education ratio is not published for 2 years, 2019 and 2020. If you go to these two bars, you will see one dark bar, which is for 2020, and one light bar for 2019. You will see there is no difference. Bear in mind, in September 2019, we were in a classroom. The students were in campus. In September 2020, all the students are online. However, the universities didn't increase the number of students between 2019 and 2020. And this may be for two reasons. The first reason, that maybe the universities were intending to go back to normal, and they don't want to put pressure on themselves by accepting more students. And the other thing, that they don't want to utilize the infrastructure development happened during COVID-19. So there is no significant change in Arab and MENA region. I think, as my colleague Jamil Hassan said, we have now IT infrastructures. We don't need more classrooms. We don't need more teachers, maybe. We don't need more facilities. We can use IT infrastructure to increase the number of students and give them opportunity to study, especially in the MENA region, to increase the percentage, at least to reach the international percentage or increase it even more. So what post-COVID-19 opportunities can bring us to increase the number of students and the access? First of all, the cost of a student per student will decrease. For us in Bahrain Polytechnic, and this is our own experience, in 2021, the number of accepted students increased by 32% without increasing any other resources. And this means most of the universities, they can increase the number of students if they decide to use the current IT infrastructure and use blended learning. We can use synchronous and asynchronous online learning, and asynchronous online learning will give opportunity to reduce even the cost of higher education per students. Second, the second opportunity is easier access. Women and mothers now, they can learn from home. And before, maybe it was too difficult for them to access higher education, but now they can. They can even attend their classes at 11 p.m. when their kids after put their kids in the bed, they can study and they can come back as a student in higher education. So I can increase the access to higher education. I can bring more lower social economic classes to the higher education. If the cost of the students reduced in higher education, more lower socioeconomic classes can participate and study and access higher education. One important thing, I can bring more students with learning differences. And this is, I always say, using technology is not only to reduce the cost, it can be to enhance the quality. I have a lot of students, slow learners. They can learn through asynchronous mode of teaching and learning better than in a classroom mode of teaching and learning. If it is asynchronous, the student with learning difficulties or special needs, they can repeat the videos 100 times just to understand. And I always say education is not race. I don't want them to just understand fast. As long as they can achieve learning outcome, this is the success. So I can make this available for them, and they can learn anytime, and we can enhance the quality of learning. And utilization of IT structure. Now, I believe all the universities, in all countries, they have the best IT infrastructure ever. I don't think now any university, they don't have LMS model, LMS system. They have Moodle, Blackboard. All the universities now are ready, and they have the IT infrastructure and facilities, and they can't go back to the normal while they have a lot of investment put in higher education over the past 2 years. So it is the time now to use and utilize the current IT infrastructure universities invested during COVID-19. So here I'm proposing a model, and I will take you with me through this journey to how to increase the access of students to higher education. In our countries, when we would like to increase the number of students in higher education, the first question will come, are you going to accept lower level students and bring them to universities? If you are accepting a student with GPA 80%, are you going to accept a student with 60%, for example, to your university? And the most important thing, how you manage the quality. If you accept a student, maybe they are not qualified enough to participate. So we have one mission to increase the access to higher education, and the second one, to maintain our quality. We don't want to increase the access and compromise our quality. And I think we need to rethink the assessment, because are we going now? We would like to access more students. We would like to access students to access to higher education. Are we going to continue to use the same entry requirement we used before for the students? I think this is what I'm proposing here. If we would like to do all this reform, we need to rethink again about the assessment. What I need from a student to access to higher education. When it's come to the universities now, to access higher education, you need to pass exam or entry exam, maybe math and English, such as most of the universities in Bahrain. And we always keep asking ourselves, do all students need to pass math entry exam to study visual design, for example, or to study web media? Maybe sometime we put this barrier for the student. I want them to pass math, and they are going to study something not related to the math. Or maybe I put a high requirements for admission, and maybe this has no impact on their academic progression. So I think if we would like to increase the access to higher education, we need to rethink again the assessment of the input. What is the entry requirement need? I wanted to keep it difficult, and I will struggle to access more students. Do I need to make it a very easy and accept the student and prepare them for the failing later on? How can I adjust assessment to accept the student and help them success in the higher education and graduate and later on success in the labor market? So I need to rethink about assessment of admission. What is the entry requirement for higher education? The second thing, I need to rethink about assessment of the process. How am I going to assess students in the courses in the university? Am I going to continue use controlled exams? Do you think this is the best way to assess students? We always say that learning is a human experience. And it's too difficult to measure this human experience in just one piece of paper. We are, as academic, we always obsessed with measuring, assessing, learning outcomes. However, I believe still we are not measuring exactly the learning outcomes, and we need to rethink what we are doing for the assessment in the higher education. So, post-COVID-19 major challenges. We need to think about assessment. If we would like to increase the access and success to higher education, we need to rethink about the assessment. Assess the learning outcomes that matters. When we revise any course, we found a lot of outcomes, learning outcomes. It's not matter to what students are learning. This is the moderation. This is what we done through moderation. However, we would like to assess the learning outcomes that matters. Why I would ask the student or assess the student about knowledge, and knowledge is available online all the time. So in many cases, we are just assessing a student and reassessing a student about something is available. Do I need to assess a student about the knowledge available all the time on the internet, or I need to teach them how to access this knowledge, how to use it, how to analyze this knowledge? So we need to rethink again about the assessment, allow flexibility. People learn in a different ways, and I can assess their abilities in a different ways as well. Control exam, for example, not fit everyone. Project-based assessment maybe not fit everyone. So why should I use one assessment tool for all students? If I have 500 students, I insist to use same assessment tool for all of them. I should allow space for flexibility, because the purpose here that they are not passing this assessment tool. The purpose here to assess if he achieved this learning outcome or not. The tool doesn't matter as long as the tool is valid and reliable and I can take it. So allow time for flexibility and make room for multimodality or 360 evaluation. So I can evaluate the student from different perspectives about same learning outcome, just to ensure that there is learning and the human experience, learning as a human experience. So now, to rethink assessment, I propose here 5 principles. First, get back to what is essential. The second principle, assess learning outcomes that matters and focus on skills. Third, allow flexibility. And fourth principle, make room for multimodality, virtual delivery, and hybridization for the assessment. If I would like to increase, yesterday the deputy minister from Egypt, he shared that they focus on internationalization. And now we have international students, they would like to study online in our universities. How I'm going to assess them? Am I going to use again a controlled exam for assessment? We need to rethink about it again. And we have different strategy. For us, in Bahrain Polytechnic, we take a step to eliminate controlled exams. And we have a lot of discussion if we need controlled exams or not. Second, we focus more on a project-based assessment rather than exams and papers. We focus on real-life experience and ask tutors to assess a student in the field. Simulation is one of the way you can assess a student, because you need to assess the skills. Maybe we use a student peer review assessment, and this is maybe it's not fit for us and within one university, because the students, they will not be a good assessor for their colleagues, but we can use it between universities, and we can allow students to assess other students from other universities. And this will give them two things: they will assess and they will learn through assessment. And finally, if you can see, finally is to rethink about assessment. I will ask you a question, and all the tutors and academic staff, if you give students an exam through Google Forms or any kind of controlled exam tools, and the student go and search in the Google, and he answered this question, do you consider it as a cheating or as a learning opportunity? And when the tutors come and they tell me, I give him a question and he take it and copy it from Google, I ask him, do you consider this as cheating and misconduct from academic perspective, or you consider it as learning opportunity for them? Did he learn from this? What do you want? You want to assess them, to assess the student, or to make them learn more? So I always tell them, if you are doing control exam, avoid any question appear easily in the Google, so the student can copy it and bring it. Put more question related to analysis, to the experience, to the reflection. So I think we need to rethink assessment if we would like to increase the number of students to help them access higher education. We need to rethink the assessment of input, and we need to rethink the assessment of the process to ensure that they will able to graduate and success in the future. So assessment is the key corner, and maybe I'm here focusing on assessment because at the university, if anyone question any assessment in the university, this will lead that the people are going to questioning the qualification. And if the qualification of any university question, this will lead to a bad reputation for the higher education institution. And if the reputation damage and the image damage of higher education, it's need maybe decades to rebuild again this reputation and image. So I always say assessment is the cornerstone in any reform. And this is the final model where I take you through this journey to build. To open access, we need to think about economy needs. I don't go into open a lot of a program not related to what my country needs, because it will lead a lot of students unemployed at the end. I need to consider the quantitative access, where the number of students, and the qualitative, to introduce more categories to the higher education. Women, special needs, working students, lower economy or social classes. And I need to enhance as well the quantitative and the qualitative of success. So the quantitative of success, I need to make sure that all my graduates are working. So it's a graduate destination surveys, which we are doing every year for the graduates, and qualitative, which is about to what extent our graduates are good and can perform very well in labor market and attractive by the employers. If our graduates are attractive and the employers seeking our graduates, this is a good indicator that we are doing well, accepting a student, preparing them for labor market, and send them to the labor market. All this needs to be done without compromising the quality. And if we don't want to compromise the quality, always we need to keep our eyes on the assessment. If the assessment failed, everything will fail. The curriculum has four main components. The first component is the content, and the content now is available everywhere. We don't have an issue. The second component is the teaching and learning, and teaching and learning can be transferred to online easily. We have LMS, we have Teams, we have Zoom, and it's no issue to transfer it to online. The third one is extracurricular activities, and this one is available. Student can access all the enrichment activities and extracurricular activities. The last component is the assessment. And still, till now, this is not the one all the companies and corporate talking about. When we are talking about assessment in higher education, most of them, they are talking about invigilating system, invigilating IT system. This is the easiest part. We need to focus on it. The three part, it's easily to find alternative solution for them. The assessment should be done by the higher education, maintain the quality of assessment, and you will maintain and to ensure the quality of the outcome, which is the graduate skills and attributes and the success in the labor market. Thank you for listening, and I'm ready for the questions.
Thank you very much indeed. Are there any questions or comments in the room? Sir, would you like to come up here? We are still technologically challenged with a roaming microphone.
Thank you, Dr. Reem, for your model. I see your review is really optimistic about the future for the MENA region. My question to you is how we can really use the thinking and the model that you are putting here in the Arab world and increase the number of students that they can join higher education. That will be really wonderful for our economics, for the benefit of all people here in the Middle East. So the question, how we can implement your model. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question, Dr. Jamil. I believe we can do it in MENA region. You mentioned in your presentation that the future, and yesterday as well, the CEO of Coursera, he mentioned that the future for hybrid. So it will be online and in a classroom. From my perspective, I can't use only online education. As you know, education is a human experience and it's need human interaction. So I can't keep the student fully online. So I against to use fully online programs or fully online education for students in higher education. I'm still within using hybrid mode of teaching and learning in higher education. If I'm going to use hybrid mode of teaching in higher education, I'm able to reduce the cost per student. And if I'm able to reduce the cost per student, I will be able to accept more students and to reduce the cost, the tuition fees. And this will give a lot of students the ability to pay tuition fees and access higher education. So I think it is doable. It's need just regulations. It's need regulatory body to just keep eyes about the quality of these programs. And I believe this is doable. The other thing is related to quality. I mentioned now the student can learn online, maybe in some cases better than face-to-face. Especially as I mentioned, they can repeat it as much as they want. However, the future for hybrid. Okay, if my student just study in a classroom, he will not be able to work in hybrid environment in the work. I need to prepare him for hybrid future, okay, and work. So I don't want to be student just to learn in the classroom. I want him to study, to know exactly how to deal with virtual learning or virtual working environment. And this is part of our employability skills where we are preparing our students now. If I return the students back to physical classrooms and teach them face-to-face, our students will lose the skills that they develop over the past 2 years through online learning. So I think it's doable. We can do it. We can decrease the tuition fees. We can decrease the cost per student in higher education, and we can increase the number and access ratio to higher education.
Yes. We have two questions. So would you like to come up first? Would you like to come up as well? So your question can be taken straight afterwards and then Reem can respond.
My question to the speaker is, like, since you have quoted that using Google during assessments is a cheating or misconduct. So regarding that, in the real life, we do use Google for many things, for general searches. For me, sometimes we have to like thesis, dissertation, do some research. We do use Google's. My question is, should we sync assessments, the academic assessments, with the real life purpose of using Google?
Right. So I have, well done for your presentation. Is very good, and it's like the optimum, kind of. Can you hear me? Yeah. So it's basically the optimum system that all over the world is, and being. I like the example you gave about ladies, and one of the things that delays a lot of us, for instance, making families to basically finish up our education, career, etc. So it's a very optimum system if it can be implemented not just in Bahrain or the Gulf countries, but it's also something that's desirable all over the world. My question is, how can we make that optimum system tailor-made? Because it's really what you are suggesting, something that is tailor-made case by case, given that the educational system is more of kind of general, which is more viable. It is optimum, but it is very difficult to have that, as I said, customized kind of. It's from student to student case. And secondly, have you thought of, again, this is a question that aligns with what Jamil asked earlier. Have you thought of, let's say, applying that on a smaller group? It doesn't have to be a higher education group, but it can also be just a smaller group of students, maybe in colleges, etc., to back up as a successful case study. This is very long. Right.
Thank you for your question, Dr. Hanan, and thank you for my colleague here for the question. For the first question, it's using Google. It's part of our daily life. We are doing it every time. And this is what I mentioned here. We need to rethink about assessment principles. Still, many of our academics, they think that using any information available is cheating. This is not. We need to prepare them. Google is a part of our life, so we can't exclude it. When the academic staff raise things, I always, a similar thing, I always tell them, please change your assessment tool. What do you want to assess? If you assess the student and ask him about information easily available to the Google, this means your assessment is not good assessment. You need to teach them how to link data available on Google and come to a conclusion. No need to go to this basic of level. So we are not teaching knowledge. Again, knowledge is available. And there's another question. I always share it with academic staff. How to convince a child, for example, that he needs to memorize timetables while he has his phone all the time with him and he can reach the accurate and the best answer using his tool. So many things need to be just rethink about the assessment. I'm not proposing here something. I say we need to criticize ourselves, what we would like to assess, what we are accepting from our students. We are preparing now Generation Z, who are born between 1998 and 2012. They are different generation. Okay, I can't assess them against the principle for my generation. And I ask them to remember knowledge and keep answering questions based on knowledge. I did an experiment. My colleagues in Polytechnic, they are very expert in using IT. Just I close the computer and I put papers in front of them. I tell me the steps to reach this task. They fail to do it, even though they are doing it every day. So sometimes the assessment tool, it is not assessing the learning outcomes. So when I ask my secretary, for example, merge files and write the steps, she is doing it every day. But the assessment tool I use is wrong. So she told me I can't write the steps because I can't memorize the steps. I think we need to rethink what we are assessing. what the skills we are assessing, how we help the students. So I'm
Right.
not giving answering, I'm just raising the question. One more.
Okay, so let's.
Okay, one more. I just want to answer Dr. Hanan, is this variable? I think we started in Bahrain Polytechnic. Last year, we increased the number of admitted students 30%. What we are going to do this year is to examine this model. We would like to accept more students. We start now accepting students from industry. So they are full-time workers and they will come to higher education. So I think it can be. It's just need some amendments to our system, our environment in higher education. And I think we are able to do difference to offer education to big to many categories. Thank you very much, David. I know I take more than I should.
You are welcome.